fabulous lady. And she got better reviews than I did, but that's okay. She would be beautiful. But you know, when David called me, negotiation, I said, David, look, I'd rather not do it. I really don't want to do it, David. So please. But if you insist, because I have such respect for you and you're my friend, I will do it. But I'd rather not do it. And by the way, Forbes just came out and said I'm the highest paid speaker in the world. You saw that, right? Over $1 million a speech. Is that right? More than Clinton. And by the way, with me, you know that I get nothing. I don't have to do something for somebody to get the speech. I mean, me, it's just a speech. So I said, David, I'd rather not do it. And I feel strongly about that, David. But if you want me to, I will. Now, who is going to say, he said, Donald, I want you to. It's true. Is that true? Is that true? So we need our great negotiators. We need people that know what they're doing. Now, here's another thing that was terribly misconstrued on purpose. I love Mexico. I love the Mexican people. 2 waiters came up to me tonight. Mr. Trump, we love you. I said, where are you from? Mexico. I said, that's great. I love you too. I do. I love Mexico. I've had tremendous relationships with people in Mexico. But I said, we need a strong border. I said, we need a wall. We have to get people to stop flowing into our country like water. And I said, and this isn't just Mexicans coming in. These are from all over the world they're coming. And a lot of the people are bad. Now, doesn't it make sense? These countries aren't sending their finest. They're sending people that are like got a lot of problems. Doesn't that make sense? So I'm at a wedding at one of my clubs. And, you know, whenever I'm at one of my clubs, I always stop and see the bride. Hey, how you doing? Great-looking bride, great-looking husband, good luck. They're happy. You know, now they're happy that they paid me $600-700 a head. Okay? And I'm at this wedding 2 weeks ago, beautiful bride in Bedminster, New Jersey. And I see the bride, I see the groom, and, you know, after about 2 minutes, I was bored stiff. I wanted to get out of there. But then I meet these 2 guys. I say, what do you do? Good-looking guys, strong, tough guys. So we're border guards. I said, what border? We don't have any borders anymore, do we? I was actually surprised. I said, no, we're border guards. We're guards on the southern border. I said, wow, tell me, sit down. I was with these guys for an hour. I found it very interesting. And they said, you know, it's tough, Mr. Trump, because we're letting people in that we shouldn't. I said, how bad is it? They said, now, these are 2 innocent guys. These are not guys that, you know, are looking to cause problems. They're just telling me the facts. I mean, I meet all sorts of con men and guys a little glib with their tongues. These are guys that are just great people. They're like great American people. They said, you have no idea how bad it is, Mr. Trump. I said, how bad is it? They said, some of the people coming into this country are just unbelievable. They're killers. And these aren't just Mexicans. This is all over. This is all over. All over South America, probably from the Middle East. Why not? That'll be next. They said they're killers, they're rapists, they're drug dealers. And it makes sense. You know, it makes sense. And I wasn't that surprised to hear it. But they were very down because they're not being allowed to do their job. They could do their job. We could do a great job without the wall, except I just happen to be so great at building things, I would do some great work. Okay. I'm the best. I'm the best builder. Nobody can build like me. But they were very sad. And I said to a couple of people, and then I said to them, I basically said this, we need to strengthen our borders. And they said, I'm a racist. And they said, I don't like Mexico. I said, I love Mexico. Why don't I like Mexico? And a lot of the people that come in from South America, they don't want it to happen either. Because these people are causing problems and taking jobs and this and that. But I said, I love Mexico, I love the people, and they say, I don't love Mexico. So the way they go about taking what you say, one of the advantages, by the way, to live television, a lot of people don't like doing live television. I'd actually rather do live television. Because if you do live television, they can't cut you. When I do a piece, I did a piece the other day for some. Actually, it was 90% good. But 10% was, you know, theft. They cut you around, and they cut you up, and people say, That was terrible. I said, that's not what I said. They'd cut me in the middle of a sentence. Or I'd go on to explain something and they'd cut me. I said, this is terrible. I like doing live television. I had a statement, because I've been watching the president with the teleprompter, and he gives a pretty good speech. I've seen better. I mean, we're not dealing with Winston Churchill here, folks. But I've come up with this, that anybody running for president shouldn't be allowed to use a teleprompter. Okay? Shouldn't be. And, you know, I've said it a little bit in jest, and then all of a sudden I started saying it's really true. Because if I had a screen here, and I'm looking here and looking there and reading, and, you know, we get all bored, then we all leave, and everybody said, oh, that was okay. It was fine. You don't find out the real person. You're not finding the real person. Now, it's safer. You don't make a mistake. It's hard to make a mistake. And, you know, one of the things that both Davids were really saying, I've had an amazing career. I've really enjoyed my life. And I watch, and somebody was very, you know, point blank the other day in a positive way. I thought about my career. I went to the Wharton School of Finance, which is probably the hardest school in the United States to get into, and has been for many years, even in my day. And that was before I was Trump, so to speak, okay? You know, who do I know to get into Wharton? I had really good marks. I was a good student. I had an uncle who was at MIT for many years, Dr. John Trump, one of the great scientists. I mean, like, I'm a smart person. So I go to the Wharton School of Finance, right? Get in. I see some of the smartest people in the country. They were in my class. Interestingly, and this is for you, some of the smartest people in Wharton aren't the biggest successes. It's the people that never quit and never gave up. They never, ever gave up. You understand what I'm saying? They're the ones that are running things. Very interesting. But I go to the Wharton School of Finance, great student. I leave Wharton. I start off with my father in Brooklyn, and I say, Pop, I want to go into Manhattan. No, son. And I have a great father. He was a great guy and a great negotiator. I learned so much. Not that he taught me specifically, but I'd play with blocks at his feet while he's on the phone fighting with a plumbing contractor over price. And when I was a young guy, 5 years old, 4 years old, 6 years, I'd hear this and I'd hear it. And I'd say, wow, that's great. And I had a father who loved to work. He was a worker. And he was a happy man. He had a great marriage. He had a fantastic marriage. They were married for 63 years, like just a happy marriage. And I said to I learned a lot because I said, you know, you can work and be really happy. It's a great thing. But I had a father who really was a teacher to me and a mentor to me. And when I look at what, you know, my career, so I go to Wharton, I do great. I get out. My father said to me, son, you don't want to go into Manhattan. I said, but Pop, I want to build these big buildings. He said, it's not our territory. And he was a tough cookie, but he was a very good man and a loving father. He said, son, it's not our territory. It's not for us. Let's stay in Brooklyn and Queens. We're doing great. Just, it's not our territory. It's not for you. You don't want to build there. That's the big leagues. You don't want to be there. I said, but Pop, I got to do it. So I was with him for 4 years. I was pretty young when I went in. And I was working with the Penn Central Railroad. I wanted to get options. I wanted to get this. I was all over the place. All of a sudden, I get an option to the old Commodore Hotel, and I fix it, and I build it. I make it into the Grand Hyatt. My father said, wow, that's amazing. Then I get involved with the West Side Convention Center, and I took an option to the site, and they were going to build a center in the Hudson River, and I convinced Governor Carey, who was actually a terrific governor, especially under pressure. You know, some people are better under pressure. Governor Carey was better. He might be a Democrat. I don't care whether he's Republican, Democrat. He was great under pressure. And he was under a lot of pressure to build it in the wrong. They were going to build it in the Hudson River. They couldn't get their environmental permits. And I had a site that was a better site. You didn't have to go on the other side of the West Side Highway. And he called me in with this guy named Dick Ravitch, who was a totally overrated person. Good public. No, it's true. And I debated Dick Ravitch in front of the governor, the two of us. At the end of about 10 minutes, he said, Donald's 100% right. And he went with the convention center. We got it built. It was a Jacob Javits Convention Center. I did many, many things. I mean, that was my deal. And then I did the exterior renovation of Grand Central Terminal and many, many other jobs. Now it's all over New York. Now I'm all over the world. Okay, so I do this, and I build a massive company that's tremendously valuable, far more valuable than people thought. I gave my financials when I gave my speech. I said, and that's another thing, I hold up my financials, and conservatively, it's net worth, not assets, net worth around $9 billion. That's conservative. So then I get people saying like, oh, when I said, held up my financials, I held them up for a reason. I said, and that's the kind of thinking, and I said this, because those of you that watched it, which by the way was the #1 speech by far of all candidates, including Hillary, watched, okay? by the millions, by far. #1 on Google, #1 on speech, #1 on everything. Okay, so who cares? But I held it up. I held it up, and I said, I'm worth this. I built a great, great company. And this is the kind of thinking that this country needs at the top. Because we have to take back our jobs, we have to take back our money, we have to take back our country. Other countries are killing us. They're destroying us. We can't let it. So I'm really successful, and I don't want to talk about that. But this is the kind of thinking that we need at the top. So, well, so I think it's a good message. So what gets broadcast all over the place is, I'm really rich, I'm really successful. That's not what I said. I said I'm really rich, I've done a great job. And I also said, and I'm not saying that and showing you this to brag. I'm showing you this because we owe now almost $19 trillion. And we're going up to $24 trillion, and that's called the point of no return. When we get to 24, we become sort of like a Greece large-scale version. And we're going to be there soon. So when I held up my statement, and I said, look at the great job I did, and that's the kind of mentality that we need in the White House, they left the second part out. So I look like this jerk holding up a statement, I'm rich. But it wasn't meant for that. They don't leave the rest of it. These are very strange people. Okay, so I go to Wharton. I do great. I'm really smart, right? I then create this incredible company, and my father was the most proud. He said everything. You know, he was a tough cookie who, frankly, was difficult. But after he was, and by the way, Reed understands that fact. Is your father easy, Reed? I don't think so, right? But you have total respect for Reed. You know, it takes a while with these tough, smart fathers. But my father really respected me. He said, he's unbelievable. Everything he touches turns to gold. I mean, it was my father doesn't talk like that. Then I go out and I do a book. It's called Trump, The Art of the Deal. The book goes to #1 ever. It's in all the schools. I mean, it's all over still to this day. It's one of the great business books, right? And it's a huge success. And I'm #1 on the New York Times list and every other list for many, many, many months. And I'm saying, I don't believe it. My father didn't believe it. He said, gee, I told you not to go into Manhattan. This is getting crazy. Then I have Mark Burnett come to me, the great producer of Survivor, etc. And he says, I want to do a show called The Apprentice, and I'll only do it if you do it. And The Apprentice goes to one of the top shows ever. #1, many, many evenings. #1, I mean, the finale of season 1 and season 2. And to this day, I don't know if you know it or not, NBC, you know, it's very hard to have a successful show. 95% of the shows that go on television fail. There have been 15 copies of The Apprentice. I won't mention the names, all celebrities. All of them failed. All of them failed. I mean, in all fairness, one name, Martha Stewart. She did a show for us and it failed. It's called The Apprentice. Same music, same everything. It failed. Somebody said, would you have loved that show? You owned the show with Mark Burnett. Would you have loved that show to be successful with Martha Stewart? And I say to him, I think not. Maybe not. Because I know the headlines. Martha beats Trump. So I'm glad it failed. You want to know the truth. I could have made more money if it was successful, but I think I'm proud. And Martha's wonderful. But you know what? I'm sure she'll love that statement. She's wonderful. You know, now she's happy, right? But there were 15 copies of The Apprentice. So think of it. Top student, greatest school, hardest school to get into. #1 book. One of the top television shows. Copied by 15 top people, the biggest people. They all failed. NBC even renews it now, even though they know I'm not doing it. They renewed it. They said, we'll wait for you. Maybe they're hoping I fail. I guess they probably are. Maybe that's why NBC treats me so badly, David. Now I figured it out. That's why Sleepy Eyes Chuck Todd is always going after me. That's what it is. They want me to do The Apprentice. Hey, I just figured that out up here. It's amazing what you can... So I have all this tremendous success, build up this incredible worth, and I have people like a guy like Karl Rove, who raised $439 million and didn't win a race. He put on a commercial that was so bad, I watched during the last cycle. It was so bad that I thought it was a commercial for the Democrats. That's how bad it was. But I watched him the other night say, Trump is not a candidate, and he won't be a candidate because he won't file. But I filed, like yesterday. But now they'll find something else. And all you can do is be honest and be truthful. And the fact is that we have had tremendous support because people are tired of being pushed around. They're being tired of our military being obsolete with its materials, with its weapons, what we're doing. The other day I saw a report that the enemy took over 2,300 armored Humvees. I said, no, you don't mean 2,300. You mean like 3. Think of it. 2,300 vehicles. And these are very, very expensive armor plates, the best you can get, brand new. We gave them to our so-called partners, and a gun was fired into the air, and our partners ran like a bunch of thieves. And the enemy took over these cars. 2,300. Who ever heard of so many? How did they get them over there? We have people that don't know what they're doing. We have a Secretary of State, who I think is a very nice man. I've met him a couple of times. But he's our chief negotiator with Iran. Now, you know how important that is? Because nuclear weapons are so important. And he gives up on everything. This guy gives up on everything. We're losing on every front. Again, the Persians, great negotiators, but they go back, and they go back to Iran during this break. Now, David Cordish is sitting here, and he's probably saying, how long is that negotiation? This negotiation, David, has gone on forever. We were almost children when it began. It's the longest negotiation I've ever seen. You know, we're not sending a rocket up to the moon. We want inspections. We want this. We want that. We don't want you to make nuclear. We don't want weapons. So we say we don't want this. They say no. Oh, well, how about this? No. And they just keep saying no until they get what they want. Then we have this guy at 72 or 73. He decides to go into a bicycle race. He's in a bicycle race. He breaks his leg. I promise, I will never enter a bicycle race. Ever. Ever. And think of this, because we have a lot of great business people in this room. You're the suckers that paid for this dinner, right? But what would you do if you're in a negotiation to buy a building or buy a business or buy whatever, and you have a break? Now, let me tell you what the break is. I do breaks all the time. I'm negotiating a deal. I'll tell Ivanka, honey, I'm not sure I want that deal. Let's tap them along, right? We're not sure, David, right? So we go tap, tap, tap. You know, a few weeks go by. We changed our mind. We didn't change. We're doing our thing. Maybe we're doing a little number on the people on the other side. We want to get the price down. But it's called tap, tap, tap. That's what they're doing to us. The Iranians are doing that to us. They don't want to meet. They're going to meet at the end of June. We're going to not meet. They don't know. Nobody knows. Then I see Obama get up and he explains the deal. And the head people in Iran say, that's not true. And they turn out to be right. And then the top general says essentially that he's going to annihilate Israel, and we keep talking. And then in Yemen, we're fighting Iran. But we don't mention that because one thing has nothing to do with the other. We're at war with Iran and Yemen, which, by the way, Saudi Arabia should be paying for, but these are minor details. 100%. And if you had the right messenger, Saudi Arabia would pay for it. I could take 20 people, maybe 5, in this room. And I could send them in, and we have the right messenger. And if we had the right messenger, we'd say, hey, fellas, here's a story. $1 billion a day, a lot of money, making a lot of money. You're not going to have a country in about 3 weeks. Because if you think these people want Yemen, you're wrong. They want Saudi Arabia. They want the oil, okay? Trust me. They'll give us anything you want. If you said, give us 50%. No, we'd like to make it 25. No, we want 50. And that's only because I'm being nice when I say 50%. That's only because I'm being nice. So we don't have the right people. Now, Iran has 4 people. Used to be 3. One of them's in jail because he's a Christian pastor. He's a good man. His wife came up to see me. She's devastated. He's a Christian pastor and a wonderful man. But they had 3. Now they have 4. So if we had David Cordish, Trump, a number of people, right, that we know, we would have started that negotiation on nuclear. We would have said, okay, fellas, by the way, it's only fellas. They don't have women. They haven't figured out that the women are smarter than the men yet. They just haven't done it. By the way, that will take another 150 years, but that's okay. That's good for us. That's not bad for us. So if we had the right messenger, we'd say, first day, first hour, first minute. Fellas, got to do us a favor. Got a problem. You got 4 people over there. It was 3, now 4. Got 4 people over there. They're good people. They're in the most vicious prison. Let them go. Going to set a great tone for the United States. Your people don't care. You don't care. They did nothing wrong. Let them go. And it's going to be great. Going to make life easier for all of us. Right? The right messenger. We don't even bring it up. We don't even bring it up. It was never even mentioned. Now, the wrong messenger won't get it. The right messenger, I would say 95% I'd be able to get it. Now, if I didn't get it, I'd say, fellas, you know what? Bye-bye. Double up, triple up the sanctions. Believe me, they'll come around. They'll come around. We want to take the sanctions off during negotiations. Can you believe? Do you ever hear of anything so stupid? So we want to take the sanctions off. So I would have said, come on, let them go. If they didn't do it, I would have walked, and I would have doubled up. We would have had them out. Now, here's another thing. We are giving them hundreds of millions of dollars. Hundreds of millions of dollars on a monthly basis instead of holding it. And the excuse and the reason is they say we owe it to them. So then I said, why don't we just make that part of the nuclear negotiation with Iran? They said, well, one thing has nothing to do with the other. I said, why? Why? Why doesn't it have to? So we're giving them hundreds of millions of dollars on a monthly basis. I don't know if you know this. It came out 2 weeks ago. And Marie Harth, very nice person, blonde hair, big glasses, right? From the State Department. She said, well, one thing has nothing to do with the other. In Yemen, we're fighting, as I said. Why are we letting them? They're shooting it. They're trying to kill us. They're our enemy. They're actually on the field. They don't want to bring Yemen up. Why? Why? Because they say it has nothing to do with the nuclear talks. These are people that truly have never read The Art of the Deal. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're doing. So I end on a positive note. We're making a lot of progress. We've got to get really smart people in office. We've got to get our best and our finest. China has their best and the finest. I mean, Mexico is doing a tremendous number. I have great respect for Mexico. I love Mexico. They're killing us. They're killing us. You know, I tell the story about the Ford plant, and the head of Ford wrote me a beautiful letter the other day. He said, you know, you're mentioning it, but it's an amazing story. Ford goes to Mexico. They're opening up a plant, $2.5 billion plant. That's a biggie, right? $2.5 billion? And they know how to spend money. I mean, that's like a lot of money. And it's near our border, and they are going to make cars and trucks and parts and whatever, engines. They're going to make a lot of things. And they're going to have all Mexicans manning the plant. I think that's wonderful. And I said, what would Trump do if Trump is President Trump? I would call the head of Ford. And I would say, congratulations on your new plant in Mexico. I think it's a wonderful thing. I really do. I think it's a wonderful thing. But here's the story. if you send cars and trucks and parts and whatever else you're going to have into our country, we're going to charge you 35%, because all you're doing is taking jobs away from the United States. That's all you're doing. And I actually had an idea that I think is a very good one. I think Ford will probably pick it up eventually. To get the cars and trucks and everything over here, let the illegals drive them in. They're coming in anyway. It's true. The illegals can drive them right through the border, drop them wherever the hell. And then I said, okay, so it's not going to be President Trump. Let's say it's President Bush, God forbid. Or any one of the others, including Hillary. What would she do? I'll tell you what she'd do. She knows it's a horrible deal for the United States. You're not stupid. It's a horrible deal. What do we get out of it? We get nothing. They make cars, trucks, everything there. They send them to us. We have no labor. We don't have jobs. We lose jobs because they're not building a plant because they're building it. What do we get out of it? We get nothing. And there's no tax because free trade. Oh, free trade's so wonderful. Okay? So we get nothing. So you know what President Trump would do? He'd say, great. What would happen if somebody else gets in? A politician controlled by lobbyists, donors, and special interests. So here's what happens. They'd say, we don't like that Ford deal. That's terrible. And they may even call and say, we don't really like that deal. And the next day they will be met by a barrage of donors, lobbyists, and special interest people that get paid a lot of money. Okay? And they'd say, you can't do this, Mr. President. This guy supported you. He gave you $500,000 and he raised you a fortune. You can't do it, Mr. President. You can't do it. He said, but I got to. It's so bad. You can't do it. Then the lobbyist is going to call. Then the donor is going to call. Mr. President, how can you hurt Ford? I have stock. And all of these people are going to be calling. And you know what they're going to do? Let it go. 100%. Okay. So what does President Trump do? I'll be called by the head of Ford. Probably that day. They may want to be cool and do it the next day. But I'll probably be called that day, right? And he'll say, Mr. President, you know, free trade, sir. I say, I have no interest. Then they'll probably get some people that I know and some friends that I know, none of whom I've taken money from because I don't need money. I don't need money. Okay? I don't need it. So, and I would say, no, I'm charging them. I'm going to get whatever I have to get passed. Some people say, oh, you'd have to pass legislation. Don't worry about it. I'll charge them plenty of tax. Don't worry about it. So what happens is, I would say, not going to happen. The following day, I'll get a call from the head of Ford. And you know what he's going to say to me? Mr. President, we've decided we're not building in Mexico. We're going to build in the United States. That's what it's going to say. That's what it's going to say. There's nothing else they can say. There is nothing else that can happen. There is nothing else. We lost a plant in Tennessee to Mexico. Again, I love them, but their leaders are much smarter than our leaders. They're much more cunning. They're sharper. Our leaders are stupid people, and it's leading our country down the drain. So I'm doing very well. Perhaps all of those cameras back there will leave my full statement that the American dream is dead, but I'm going to make it bigger and stronger and better than ever before. And I can only tell you this. If I win, we will make America great again. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, David. Thank you. Thank you.